Hello and welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator. Thank you very much for joining me in today's video. Now, following on from my review of the Beechcraft Baron 58 Steam Gauge Analog upgrade by BlackSquare in the last two videos, I thought I would continue with the trend and take a look at another BlackSquare product. This is the Beechcraft Bonanza upgrade or analog steam gauge upgrade for the default Beechcraft Bonanza, available for Microsoft Flight Simulator all versions. Unlike the Baron 58, this is available on the Just Flight's website for £24.99, so the exact same price as the Beechcraft Baron, but there is a discount if you get both together in a pack. This key was supplied to me by Just Flight, but as usual, all of my views will be my own, and I'm going to take a good look at this, see what it is like. I already have experience in the other BlackSquare product, the Beechcraft Baron 58, and so I know what I'm expecting. And in this video, I will still break this up into two parts, but in this video, as I did with the last one, I'm going to look at, I'm going to get myself familiarized with this cockpit. Although I am already fairly familiar with this, it is very similar to the twin engine because it is of course a related aircraft. And I will talk a little bit about the changes that this product does underneath in the underlying systems. So the underlying architecture, fuel systems, flight dynamics, electrical systems, etc. And that way, at least by the end of this video, you shall have an idea of exactly what you are getting for the £24.99. In the next video, I'll be taking this out for a test flight, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And of course, if you do enjoy these videos, please do remember to click on the like button and subscribe and leave a comment if you have picked this product up. It would be interesting to hear your thoughts and opinions on this, and if you have picked up both this and the Baron 58, which one do you prefer? It would be very interesting to find out. So let's get started. Let's start taking a close look at this aircraft, what it gives you, what it doesn't give you, and whether or not it is worth the price. So I thought I would move to this view for a bit of a discussion, looking at the manual and seeing exactly what this aircraft does give you. One of the things that, just like the other one, if you haven't seen my review for the Beechcraft Baron 58, one of the things that you need to know, and as I alluded to in my introduction, is that this is an upgrade to the default aircraft. What that means is that it uses the default exterior, barring a few little changes, of the Beechcraft Bonanza. I've done so much practice with the Baron 58, my brain keeps telling me to say Baron 58 instead of Bonanza. So if I do make that mistake, I do apologise. This is of course the Bonanza. So yes, as I was saying, it uses the external model, Asobo's external model for the Beechcraft Bonanza, with a few changes. For example, a tip tank version, which is what I have right now, has some tip tanks, and I think there are a few little changes. However, the interior is completely new. There are a number of additional sounds that are added for better immersion, and as I mentioned at the start, the underlying nature of this, but the underlying systems, the underpinnings of this aircraft are all redone, reworked, adjusted and improved to make this a much more accurate flight experience. So what does it change? Well, I'm just going to read through the systems that it changes. So you are going to enjoy features like the reciprocating engine simulation with fouling, vapor lock, flooding and backfires. A lot of this, if you've seen the Baron 58 video, is going to be a repeat because it does have a similar sorts of things. The most realistic turbocharger simulation in Microsoft Flight Simulator to date. Completely intractable electrical system with 4 buses and 70 circuits, so this is a bit different to, I think, the Baron 58. Engine leaning optimization lean find on EDM 800 engine monitor, which is different to, again, the Baron 58, which was a 760, I think. So this is the EDM 800. Engine limit excursions decrease engine health and will eventually lead to failure. I have not yet crashed the 58, so there we go. Selective state saving for radio selection, that does not particularly matter, but 80 plus system failures set via an in-cockpit interface. I shall show you that a little bit later. That is actually embedded into the weather radar, a very clever use of the weather radar. Mathematically accurate VOR and ADF, this is quite a big one. As I explained in the Baron 58 video, which if you want a little bit more detail perhaps on these, maybe go watch that video. I may miss a few things out in this one, but the idea of a mathematically accurate VOR and ADF with actual interference and strength of signal depending on the distance that you are from the beacons is something that Microsoft Flight Simulator does not have. It is normally, you enter the range, you have a perfect signal, that's it. This actually has a concept of you will lose signal, you'll have signal degradation the further out you are from the beacon, which is really, really good. You've also got 350 checklist items on 35 plus normal, abnormal and emergency procedures in textual form in this manual that I'm reading from, or it is also available, if I go up here, there you go, a whole bunch of checklists, and you can see just how detailed things are just from the amount of items in said checklists, and we will be running through some of the checklists in this video and indeed the next video. Now, the model, as I mentioned, is an accurately modelled interior using the default exterior. So that is, just bear that in mind. Any inaccuracies on the exterior or limitations on the exterior, for example, the doors do not open, that is because the Microsoft Flight Simulator default Bonanza does not have that animation logic, for example. So unfortunately, these are going to be a little bit in the way of limitations. Now, obviously in the cockpit, you can see that things are very, very different. We've got, well, everything you see in front of you here. So if I just pan from here, so all the way up here, all of this, all of that, all the way down there, all of those circuit breakers, this, all of this, obviously these, this is all usable. Every single one of these works and has a purpose, except perhaps the USB ports. They do not, unless you wanted to pretend charge a mobile phone or something in here. So yes, these all work, which is very nice, and of course I will be going into each one of these in a little bit more depth a little later in this video and further on. But on top of all of that, so you've got the underlying systems, the electrical systems, the engine simulation, the I suppose there's probably changes perhaps to any hydraulic systems or pneumatic systems as well. But on top of all of that, you also have a corresponding change in flight dynamics. So there is an improved flight model compared to the default aircraft, with tweaks that are based on operator feedback and real flight data. So for example, if you were to mess around with that cowl flap there, that you can see I'm just lifting and opening and closing, that will impact the drag on your aircraft and therefore impact the top speed, the acceleration and all of that kind of stuff. Similarly, there is a, if I just move this view up here somewhere, I believe, there it is, there's an air conditioning scoop. Now, adjusting this will also impact your drag, because that's why is there an aircraft there? That opens up a scoop on the outside, on the exterior, and that will have an impact on your aircraft's performance. So things like that are built into the system, as well as things like engines running rough because you've overworked the engine or things like that, and that will then also have an impact on your flight dynamics and your performance and your speed and acceleration and how high you can climb, things like that. So it is very, very detailed in that sense. The aircraft, there are 2 aircraft that come with this. Well, actually, I think there are 3 aircraft that come with this. You've got the naturally aspirated aircraft. You have a naturally aspirated aircraft with tip tanks, which is just these tanks here, these extra tanks that just give you a little bit more fuel, which is transferred by this over here. And you also have a turbocharged aircraft, which is what this one is. Now I say that, I'm not entirely sure I did pick the turbocharged one, because there's nothing in here that... No, this is definitely turbocharged. I'm fairly sure this is turbocharged. We should be able to hear it. When we start the aircraft up, the turbo should be audible. So you get 3 different variations of this aircraft. Each variation flies differently, works differently, you adjust mixtures differently. For example, the idea of the turbocharged, the most accurate turbocharged simulation, one of the things that it does is that until you reach a critical altitude for this aircraft, you will not have to adjust the mixture for a turbocharged aircraft, I believe. I'm not 100% on that, but I believe that is how it works. So you could max out the aircraft and just fly all the way up. Once you have passed a critical altitude, then you will have to make some adjustments on your mixture, and I think that is 19,000 feet roughly with this particular aircraft. And that is another thing. As I said, each aircraft is slightly different. So for example, the naturally aspirated aircraft has a service ceiling of 18,500 feet, whereas the turbocharged aircraft has a service ceiling of 25,000 feet. So there are those kind of different speeds are different, takeoff lengths are different. Obviously the weight of the aircraft is different, the amount of fuel it carries is different, operating temperatures about the same, rate of climb will be different. Turbocharged aircraft, more power, better rate of climb. So all of these things are different, which is really nice to see. You essentially get 2 different aircraft to play with. Let's have a look now that we've talked about all of that. Let's just have a quick look at what we have in this cockpit. For those people perhaps unfamiliar with steam gauges or new to a study level aircraft, which is what this mod or this add-on really does. It brings it up to study level. I'm just going to quickly run through what we have here. Then I will talk a little bit about maybe starting it up, and then after a startup, just show you some of these systems that are switched on. In the next video, I will also go over startup again, but that startup will be followed by a taxi, a run-up, a takeoff, a climb, cruise, descent, approach, landing. So everything, and a shutdown as well. So essentially an entire flight, but just to show a few things off here, I will go ahead and start the aircraft up once we've just looked through what we have. So what do we have here? Well, the first thing I'm just going to point out are the avionics, because these 2 switches here, COM1 and COM2, actually switch out the avionics module. So I have the GNS 530 installed at the moment. I actually have the upgraded version, which you can get on the Microsoft Flight Simulator store for free. This is going to soon be part of default Microsoft Flight Simulator, so even if you do not have it yet, it doesn't really matter. If you want to use this, it will be coming into default Microsoft Flight Simulator with the more advanced version that you are going to see. The simple basic version is still there, and so yes, I have a GNS 530 here, and then I have got the Bendix King KX 155 down here. So this is a GPS system for my COM1, and for COM2 I've got the old radio systems. However, if I wanted to, I could flick this switch and bring up a Garmin GNS 430, and this would give me 2 GPS radios, or 2 GPS systems, which is pretty neat. Also, if I wanted to, I could flick this down and go completely analog and go to a full KX 155 system, and you will see that this changes this audio panel up here to the KMA24 audio panel, 2 KX 155s, COM1, COM2, and then I will go over the rest of these in a bit because they do not change. But that is how these things work. You'll also notice something disappeared there, just showing you it just moves down to the bottom. It's the ADF radio, just moves down underneath this when it can. You've also got the option of the touchscreen GTN 750. This is something you have to install. Installation is, again, you can download the mod or the add-on and install it. It is free. The instructions are in the manual, but because I do not like touchscreen systems, I did not install it, and therefore I'm going to be using the 530. So I thought I would start with that. I'll come back to these and describe them in a little bit more detail later, but just to give you an idea of the customization that is available, let's go over to this side. So what do we have here? Well, we can start off with an annunciator panel at the top. You can actually see we've got warnings for gear up, low bus voltage, start, that's if the start is activated, off door, air conditioning door extended, gyro warning, standby gyro, P, and standby, I was going to say standby altimeter, no, standby alternator. There you go. So that is your annunciator panel. You've got some other options here. You've got, so this is your autopilot indicators. So you've got flight director, nav mode, whether it's been armed, altitude hold, autopilot, yaw damper, glide slope, coupled mode. This is for an approach where you've got a localizer and glide slope, approach mode, heading mode, and then some lighting at the bottom. Options here to switch between nav and GPS and approach mode. So that is those ones there. Over here we've got a little part of the autopilot system. It's a little bit strange because part of the autopilot system's down there, and then the part of the autopilot system is up here. Now this part only controls the vertical speed and altitude, so you can set the altitude here, you can set the vertical speed here, and then arm and engage it as you wish. Standard speedometer here shows you your airspeed indicated as well as your true airspeed by calibrating it there. So you calibrate it with the temperatures. I can show you this in the next video when we are at some altitude, at some temperature. I will calibrate it and show you how to work out your true airspeed as opposed to the knots indicated airspeed. Ticker tape is standard, or the tapes are standard here. That is your minimum speed in a dirty configuration, so full flaps. Minimum speed, the green is your minimum speed in a clean configuration. That end of the white bar is the maximum speed in a dirty configuration before you start incurring damage. Top of the green is your maximum general speed. The yellow is your abnormal speed. You only ever do that emergencies or very, very smooth air. So that is where you could go in there. You may end up damaging your aircraft by doing that. And then you've got the red mark, which is the velocity never exceeds speed. And then in the white, your true airspeed. Next to that, we've got a Bendix King attitude indicator. Standard attitude indicator, you've got your 10, 20, 30, 60, 10, 20, 30, I think it is 60 and 90. might be 45. No, I think it is 60 and 90. So 10, 20, 30, 60 and 90. And then you've got your degrees of pitch up and down. And a little DH there. That is your decision height. I shall speak a little bit more about that in a moment. We then have a standard altimeter, which you can dial up like that. It's just a neat little trick for people who may be new to Flight Simulator. This has been in Flight Simulator for a very, very long time, many, many years. Just press B and it will set up your barometric pressure for you. And there you go. So that is how you do that. Now remember, and I did forget this in the Baron 58, once you go past your transition altitude, so for example in the UK 6,000 feet, bring that back down to standard, which is 29902, 29.92 inches of mercury, or 1013 millibars. Bring that back up. VSI underneath it, bog standard. Up is climbing, down is descending, up to 4,000 foot per minute. You really do not want to be doing 4,000 foot per minute on that. Next to that, we have got this. Oh, oops, I had that pushed in. Next to that, we have got this. Now, this is a horizontal situation indicator, exactly the same as what is in the Baron 58, but this is slightly different to direction indicators. So as you can see, you've got a glide slope option here. You've got a heading indicator knob here for your autopilot. You also have this here. So that allows you to tune in your nav. So follow a course and it works in the way you wish it to work. Sources for that are down here, HSI source, nav1 and RNAV. So I will talk a little bit about the way RNAV works in this. I think there is a limitation to this system, unfortunately, but it does work it works pretty well from what I've tested in the 58. And of course, this will rotate on its own. So unlike a standard DI, which is just a direction indicator, this will rotate the compass card on its own. Next to that, we have got our turn coordinator. So you've got your slip and skid, as well as 2-minute turns marked there. And of course, giving you a warning, no pitch information. Then what should we go to? Let's go down here, radar altitude. So this is a little radar. There's a little radar mounted under the aircraft. Now, it will only work above, I think, 10 feet. So we are currently not 10 feet off the ground, so this is not going to work. So it shows us off at the moment. But what this will give you is your actual altitude above the ground as opposed to above sea level, which is what this will give you. So for example, if you're flying over hills, this might show you at 3,000 feet. This is going to adjust itself as you fly over the hill to, you're 1,000 foot over the hill, 1,500 feet over the hill, etc. From this, you can also set decision heights. So by rotating this knob, that little orangey red mark moves around. This is how far off the ground you would want to an alert to tell you need to decide whether you are landing or not. When you set that, as you are descending and coming into land, the DH there will start blinking yellow, and the DH up here on the attitude indicator will also be blinking yellow. Just an extra warning, and I think there's a little audible tone as well, just an extra warning telling you that are you configured, ready to land. So that is very useful. Next to that, we have got this little system. So this, you'll notice, has 2 arrows in it. So we've got a green arrow and a yellow arrow. Now this is a radio magnetic indicator. This is the Bendix King 229, and it actually shows you 2 things. The yellow needle is nav1. So that is nav1, and all that is going to do is, so whatever VOR station you have put into nav1, this is just going to tell you your radials. That is all that will do. The green indicator is going to be a little bit different. So what the green indicator will do is it is linked to your ADF. So when you have tuned in an NDB on this system, that is going to point you to your NDB. So this one will point you to your VOR, the yellow one. The green one will point you to an NDB. That's pretty good when it comes to navigation, because you would very easily be able to tell which way two beacons are just by glancing at it in relation to your aircraft. Now, this also has an automatically rotating compass card, which is why there is no knob to rotate the compass card. Comes in very, very handy. This little doohickey here is a little DME instrument, distance measuring equipment. N1 is nav1, N2 is nav2, RNAV is RNAV. Now, I'm not sure if the RNAV one exists in real life, but they certainly have it here. And all it does is it takes a frequency that you have dialed in, if there is a DME available to it, and displays how far away you are. That is it. I think an RNAV one must exist. The little thing that is really useful in this is the hold. So if you are on N1 and then you put it to hold, it will lock the frequency that the nav1 radio was in for this particular unit. Whilst you could go ahead and change the frequency here, it will not adjust the frequency over here. So what it does is it stores the previous frequency you had into a temporary hold. As soon as you move out of that, that frequency is gone, and it will give you whatever your current frequencies are. But if you ever need that to, for example, you want to tune up a new VOR, get it intercepting, but you need to see how far away you are from something else, this is how you would do it. Very, very useful bit of equipment. Next to that, we have our localizer. Again, another Bendix King instrument. A lot of these are Bendix King instruments. So this is a bog standard localizer, and you can use it for nav2 radio navigation as well. So it is connected to nav2, the nav2 source, and all you would do is again rotate that for your nav2 just like you would for any VOR, but if you had it for a localizer and a glide slope, it just does it automatically. And of course you've got your to from if you want that in VOR mode. So there we go. I think I've covered all of this area quite nicely. We can quickly take a look at this. So these are engine instruments or engine gauges, manifold pressure right there. We have engine RPM right here, fuel flow in gallons per hour, that's US gallons. Then we've got cylinder head temperature and exhaust gas temperature there. Quite important for whether or not you need to do a hot or cold start. Yes, those are both included in this. If you try to do a cold start with a cylinder head temperature above 50 degrees, it may not start. So you've got to take that into consideration and actually follow different procedures. And then you've got your oil temperature and pressure over here in degrees Celsius and in pounds per square inch. That is that bit. I've already gone over some of these. So of course, as I said, you've got your GPS nav1 unit here, or if you wanted, you could have the standard KX155 nav1 unit, or you could have the Garmin touchscreen GTN 750 nav1 unit plus audio unit. So it'd just be a full integrated unit there if you wished to have that. Underneath that, I've got the KX155. This is the nav2 unit. Underneath that, we've got the RNAV unit. Now, this is a very interesting unit. What this allows you to do, and I will demonstrate this, is it allows you to move a VOR, or I say move, effectively move a VOR to a specific location, just like RNAV, radio navigation. And then you can use that source there to fly towards an RNAV and follow a radial into an RNAV spot, so an intersection or a waypoint, as opposed to an actual VOR station. Very, very useful, very easy to use. You can plot in 10 different waypoints and then swap through the 10 waypoints. You can change the accuracy of it. You can change frequency, see distances, change radials from where they are from a VOR. So you could place a waypoint literally anywhere you wanted, as long as you are within range of the original VOR. So just because you want something 50 miles away and you tune a VOR that's 150 miles away, if that's out of the range of the VOR, you are not going to pick it up. Underneath that, we have the autopilot system, flight director, altitude hold. Again, as I said, you've got that here as well, but that's that. These buttons here for vertical speed. It's a little bit strange to have 2 units, and of course it has those lights the same as these lights up here. I suppose a bit of redundancy. So again, flight director, altitude hold, heading hold, glide slope, nav mode, approach mode, back course hold, and autopilot on, and of course the test button. This is our weather radar. Standard Microsoft Flight Simulator weather radar does not have tilt function yet, despite the fact that the tilt knob does turn. Tilt functions do not work, I believe, in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but this also doubles up as a... In fact, I may as well show you. Can I show you? Will it start up? No, unfortunately not. Unless I've got to switch on the standby altimeter too. Now, okay, when I start the aircraft up, I will show you. I will show you this. It doubles up as your failure management system. So you can reset your engine health here, you can check your engine health, you can set up failures, set up scheduled failures, random failures, time-based failures, whatever you want. You can actually do that in here, I believe, when it is in naval log mode, one of these top modes up here. So that is a very clever use of the weather radar. Underneath that, we have the transponder, the Garmin GTX 327 transponder. Underneath that, we've got the ADF radio, the KR87. Then underneath that, little cabin temperature thermometer, the EDM 800, little flight management computer or engine monitoring computer, which is what its correct name would be. So this is useful. I will be showing you this when the aircraft is started. Standby instruments, ELT, which does work, as you can hear. Fuel tanks for the tip tanks, fuel tank gauges for the tip tanks and transfer pumps. Avionics circuit breakers, all of that down there. Panel lighting, flaps controls, oxygen pressure, oxygen on or off, USB ports that do not work. Fuel gauges, instruments air gauge, prop amp gauge, alternator load. So this is an ammeter, a voltmeter for the bus voltage. So the ammeter and voltmeter right there. And then you've got your main switch panel, which has your battery switch, your alternator switch, your standby alternator switch, your load meter between primary and secondary. So this is your secondary load meter can only take, I believe, 20 amps, whereas your primary can take 100 amps. So do be aware of that. Make sure you do not accidentally swap it into secondary. Master avionics switch, air conditioning switch, blower switch, standby gyro P. I suppose that's a pump, standby gyro pump, that's what it is. Vent blower, auxiliary fuel pump, high and low. This, you can end up flooding your engine with this. Lighting switches, landing gear lights, parking brake, whatever that is. What is that? I was going to say, is that... Yep, that's alternate air. Go back down to that. Alternate air is there, and then you've got some controls for your heating. And then in case of fire. In case of engine fire, you pull that. Test panel there, magneto switch there, and the starter, and all the rest of your circuit breakers there. Carbon monoxide detector down here. Baron 58 has it up here. This one has it down there. And fuel tank selector right over here. Press that to switch to off. It's a little bit strange because obviously the Baron 58, these two gaps here, this is where the fuel tank selector would be in the 58. It's a really weird thing that it's just sort of one engine, just taken one engine away, and this is essentially what we have. Last things to, I suppose, note is throttle, pitch, mixture, elevator trim, and rudder trim, and cowl flaps down there. No aileron trim on this aircraft, it seems. That is okay. So that is all of that. Quite a lot that goes on, but let's go through a checklist right now. Let's start this aircraft up so that at least you can see it in a little bit of action before we end this video. So we'll go through the before start checklist, and then the engine start cold, because this is cold, and then perhaps the after start checklist as well. So, oops, you have to be very careful when you are rotating, trying to zoom in with the mouse with a scroll wheel, because you can very easily do that. That can cause problems. Pre-flight inspection, let's assume that is complete. Seats and seatbelts secured, cabin doors latched, parking brakes set. That's one there. So that's my parking brake, that's set. Emergency gear handle stowed. I should have probably shown you that. So press Control and 9 for that. That's this one here, so that's stowed. Avionics breakers all in. That is all of these here. Flaps are up. They most certainly are. Oxygen pressure is down here. You're looking for it in the green. Avionics are all off. This is something that I have noticed with both aircraft, this one and the Baron 58. For some reason the avionics just show they're all on, when even though the aircraft is off, all the avionics are actually on, which is not how it should be. So it's a little annoying, unfortunately, but it is how it is. It isn't too much of a faff, but certainly something to consider. Throttles are closed. Propeller goes to high RPM. Mixture goes to full rich. Cowl flaps are open, so that's all the way down. It says aileron trim center. Is that the aileron trim then? Because I thought that was the rudder trim. That may be aileron trim then. But I shall take that as centered. I cannot actually see it. Which is, let's go through the control. There we go. It is aileron trim. It is not a rudder trim. We do not have rudder trim in this aircraft. Unless the rudder trim is, you know what, the rudder trim, I bet you the rudder trim is on this somewhere. No? Nope, it certainly isn't. Interesting, very, very interesting. Well, there we go. Alternate air is off. Firewall valve is pushed in, so open. Landing gear is down. All the sub-panel switches are off, which is correct. Main breakers are all in. Alternate static air is normal. That's down there. CO detector, we've already tested it, so I already pressed that button. Fuel selector to the fullest tank. I will swap it to the fullest tank. I suppose I would have to remember to swap between left and right tanks on this aircraft, which could be an interesting thing. That could be very, very interesting to remember to swap between the tanks. Beacon lights goes on, which is that one. I thought nav lights would go on as well. Doesn't seem to say that. Battery master, is on, 23 volts on the voltmeter. Annunciators, testing considered, they are fine. Check that. You can hear the noises. Primary alternator is on, standby is on, fuel quantities have been checked, we have half a tank, I may top that up before the next video. Tip tank quantities are also half a tank, that is fine. We're listening for a noise, that is quite audible. Standby gyro pump can go on, there we go, and you saw the gyro warning and then the lights come on. So that is illuminated, that's good. Instrument air is green, which is this bit here, and that is certainly in the green. Standby gyro pump goes off. And that looks good. Okay, cold start, very simple. Mixture full rich, propeller high RPM, we've done that. Throttle fully open. Now what we're going to do is give it some fuel, not for too long. I know it says 2 to 3 seconds, I tend to give it a little bit longer than that. And you'd see the fuel flow go greater than 3 gallons per hour. It has done that. I'll bring the throttle back down, just a little, and then we are going to engage the starter. Prop clear, I know that person's standing there, which is annoying, but there we go. And then just move the throttles to bring it up to 1000-ish RPM. And we have, if I open the window, you can hear it. We have a working engine. What I'm then going to do is go to the off-start checklist. Oil pressure, we're going to look for oil pressure in the green. It is, temperatures are coming up. Nothing illuminated here. Alternator load needs to go, it needs to be below 25 amps in 2 minutes, so we'll wait for that. But I do need to switch the avionics on. Bus voltage is 28, which is great. Engine instruments, everything looks okay. That all looks fine. We are going to switch on the avionics. I'm just going to show you all of these lights. So avionics have started coming to life, as you can see. That is on, that is on. I'll start that up, let it go through its self-test. Start this up. Start this up. Start that up. Start that up. And you'll notice that the gauges here all started moving and coming to life, which is exactly what we would like to see. That's going through its self-test. This is in standby. So all you need to do is go up to nav, and that shows you your engine condition. Refill the oxygen, repair the engine, reset failures. Go to log, you can adjust your failures. So go active failures, no active failures, detail settings, when you want things to change. I believe there's a way to go through the pages, and yeah, so you can just go through each one of these things as you wish and change things if you want. Go back, change that to scheduled as opposed to random, and you could then pick up your, so you could say no failures, or you could say have failures at 1024 times the real-time rate, which would be quite silly. I think I'd probably do it if you do not fly much and you want to have real engine failures, maintenance failures, or maintenance-based failures, and wear-based failures, maybe 4 times, maybe depending on how much you fly. Just go through that, and as you can see, the aircraft has come to life. Going to, in fact, I'm going to find, that is not the shot I would want. There we go. So with the aircraft coming to life, this is going to be my thumbnail. But yes, you can now see the detail that this has got. These are excellent. It even has this light glow around the red, which I really like. It gives it that effect of it is going through the glass of a screen. Very, very nicely done, whereas these are very, very clear. So yes, very nicely done. Should probably lean the aircraft, even though it doesn't really matter too much, but I will do that. The reason it doesn't matter is because I'm going to start this aircraft up again in the next video anyway. But that is where I'm going to end this video. So I've given you a good look at the cockpit, what we have, and what I'm going to expect in the next video. So I'm expecting this to perform very, very well, given all the systems features and everything that I've seen, and given the history of the BlackSquare products. So we shall have to find out in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit the like button if you like this video, subscribe to the channel for more videos on Microsoft Flight Simulator, leave a comment in the comments box below letting me know what you think. Don't forget to support me on Patreon if you can do so at www.patreon.com/ecgadget. Your support would be massively appreciated. It would really, really help me out. And also, you can find me on social media at ecgadgetlp for both Twitter and Instagram. Lastly, do go check out my Discord server. Link to that is also in the description box below. That is all from me for now. I shall see you next time for part 2, where I will start this aircraft up again, but we will go through all the checklists, do a takeoff, do a flight, approach, landing, and then I shall give you my final thoughts on this and whether it is worth purchasing and for whom. Thank you very much once again, and I will see you then.